if you can hack into a single centralized attack surface, then you can control multiple cars remotely around the world from your couch.
Hi, my name is Makdah, and today on the Seed podcast, Actionable, is David Colombo, an ethical hacker, very well known for hacking Teslas, a 20-year-old startup founder who is known for ethical hacking. Welcome to Actionable, David.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Great. So David, tell me a little bit more about yourself.
It's quite a long story, so I'll try to bring it down. So I'm a very curious person, and I've always been a very curious person. And when I got my first smartphone, I was 9 years old. That was already interesting for me. But you couldn't do much, right? It was only a smartphone. So for my 10th birthday, then I got my first laptop. And I was all in, because that was so fascinating for me. I was connected to the internet. I could run all of those applications. But eventually, I asked myself, how does it even work? Because everyone is using it. Everyone is doing Google searches, and everyone is using that technology. How does it actually work? Because it's not magic, right? It's only technology.
Yeah.
So there needs to be a very good explanation of all of those things. And I figured out I'm growing up in the best time I could ever grow up in, because I can leverage that technology to learn about how it works. I can just go on Google and learn about all of those things. That wasn't possible 25 years ago, but in the world we live in today, we have access to that knowledge. So I was just going there trying to figure out how all of this works, because I was curious and interested in it. And that's when I started coding, because I'm the opinion, if you want to understand how something works, if you build it yourself, that's the best way to learn it. And it was just pretty cool to be like 11 years old, running your own apps and being like, hey, I made this, right? So that was super fascinating, and I was exploring a lot of different things there and setting up my own servers and playing around with that. And I was begging my dad to get me like a robotic arm that I then could control and things like that. It was super, super interesting to get into the space, to learn about all of this, because that's how the world is built nowadays. Everything is based on technology, right? And it's just increasingly going to be more in the next years, right? So a few years after that, I was already coding at that young age, building all of those things. And when I was 13, it was like 2 or 3 years after I started, I found my first vulnerability. And I was like, now things get really interesting, because now I could do things with a computer system I shouldn't be able to do. I was able to manipulate database entries, and I would have been able to like delete that whole database and then things like that.
So to get this right, you started hacking when you were 13.
Yes, that is correct. Okay,
and this was, so you're just about to tell us about your first hack.
So that was, I mean, there were a few in the time span when I was getting into this. So the first one was actually, it was an application where I found, it's called an SQL injection. And that is a vulnerability that has been around for quite a long time, and it's still present today. And that's where you are able to craft malicious requests to send to that application, which then affects the database, and you can go ahead, you can change entries in the database, you can manipulate something. And I didn't abuse it. It was just really interesting to find it, because that really piqued my curiosity. And it led to a lot of interesting things after that. So one time I actually hacked my school. That was really interesting. We had those big screens that like displayed school information, which teacher is there and which lessons are changed to what time, and all of that. And someday they didn't display school information anymore. And yeah, you do.
Did you get in trouble for that? Mm-hmm. Did you get in trouble for doing that?
Oh, so I mean. So I was telling it to them. So I was already ethical back then, right? Because I want to improve the things. So I was actually going up to my teacher and telling him about what I did. And then I had to stay Friday afternoon to actually fix it, because they didn't know how to fix it. So I was the guy who then set it all up in a working fashion again.
Fantastic.
And that was something, learning about the topic was already really cool and really interesting, right? And that, of course, piqued my curiosity again. But on the other side, you could already see that it's going to be one of the most pressing challenges of tomorrow when we go ahead and digitalize our whole lives, basically, right? We're starting with smart homes, going to autonomous cars, but even large parts of critical infrastructure are fully digitalized now. Right. So that was really something where I got into the space and spent like all my time on it. Even though school was on the next day, I stayed up until like 4 a.m. coding and hacking.
So you've been a developer or a coder for 10 years. 3 years into it, you discovered your first vulnerability and you did the ethical thing about it, whether it was in school or then. What sort of led you to say, you know what, now I want to pivot and focus my career on becoming a cybersecurity expert.
I'm not quite sure if it has been cybersecurity all along because the topic has been so interesting. The main part is if you want to hack and secure something, you have to understand how it works. That's the only way to do it. If you want to hack something, you have to understand how the fundamental technology works. So having all of that coding experience, knowing how to build those applications, how to set up those servers, that was really crucial to then go into cybersecurity, right? So I think it was a very natural way to go from that into cybersecurity, because first you learn the basics, you learn how the internet works, you learn how all of those programs work, and then you can go ahead and find where the vulnerabilities could be in that. So that was something where I was just seeing that huge impact and that huge value that is going to be within cybersecurity. And for me, it felt very natural to go into the space, because that is going to have an impact on the world. Not only for the next few years, but that is going to have an impact all the way.
Right, and David, you mentioned to me earlier today that you actually found a way to leave school, and so
yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I was fully into cybersecurity, right, and doing a lot of interesting things there. And because I was spending all my time on it, I didn't have much time for school. So I was coming home from school, opening my laptop, going ahead there. Not doing my homework and just going back into tech, and then staying up until 4 a.m., sleeping a few hours, going back to school. So one time I was actually sleeping in school because I was just so tired, because I spent the whole night on cybersecurity and tech, right? So then I asked myself, how much value is within the school education here? Because all of the things that I'm learning, a lot of them are really useful if you want to go ahead, and you need to have a basic fundamental set in math and languages and all of those kinds of things, right? One of the subjects that I really didn't like was Latin. And I was sitting there and I was asking myself, like, why should I spend my time sitting here learning Latin or doing poem analysis, writing about why the curtains are blue, if I could be out there helping to protect organizations and maybe even helping to protect critical infrastructure against cyber attacks, right? So I was literally also asking myself the question, what is going to be more important within the next decade? Is it going to be Latin or is it going to be cybersecurity? And for me, that answer was very clear. So I was like, I have to quit. That's the only logical way. I feel like schools could be the place where you develop talent. But I mean, I'm from Germany, and schools there, they don't do it yet. They don't have that tech. We had informatics classes where you learned about how to create an Excel spreadsheet. And that really wasn't what is needed for the world now, right? So I didn't see a lot of value in that, and I was thinking that if I do self-education in the topic, which I'm already very involved in and very good at, I could accelerate a lot faster and I could move a lot faster than spending another few years in school. So I made the decision to quit, and in Germany you can't do that.
You can't quit school.
No, you can't quit school. You have to be 18 to get out of school. So.
But how'd you do it?
Yeah. So I was. If there's a bug in my code, I don't sit back and relax, and that's the way it is. You know, there's this bug. It's there. You can't do anything. No, you get into it and you fix it. And no matter how long it takes, you sit down, you fix that bug. And I was just trying to apply the same principle there, because I thought there must be a way. There must be a way. You know, the impossible is only impossible so long until someone does it, right? So I was pretty sure there must be a way, and then I found someone at the German Chamber of Commerce who kind of understood what I was saying. So he was driving there to the middle of nowhere in Germany. He was driving there 2 hours to see what I'm up to, what I'm doing, and he gave me a special permission to only go to school 1 or 2 days a week, so I can use the rest of the time to focus on cybersecurity and my self-education. So that was really great, because then I could just spend a lot more time on it. But that is also something.
You found a way to ethically hack the school system.
Kind of.
To get your way to focus more on what you think is more important, which is cybersecurity.
Definitely. But I feel like, and I still feel the way that schools could be the place where you accelerate talent, where you develop talent, where you spark the curiosity within people to have impact on the world. I think that is something schools should do instead of putting barriers in your way.
Right. So you're 20 years old today, right? And could you tell us a little bit more about the different roles you play in cybersecurity today, whether it's with your own companies or with other government agencies?
I mean, there's multiple things, right? So the tech part is definitely one thing, finding vulnerabilities, reporting vulnerabilities. But on the other side, there's also so many more very important parts to it, right? You have to speak with the right people. You have to bring awareness to the topic. That is something that I think is very important, to bring awareness to the topic, to show what issues and challenges we face. And also something that I'm very passionate about is inspiring other young people to go into the field. Because for me, it's my passion. That is something, I think that field is so important, and I love working on it, right? For me, it's not a job. I don't go to work at 9 a.m. and then clock out at 5 p.m. And I'm working on it all the time. And I feel like we need a lot more young people also getting that passion and igniting that spark. So one time it's really finding vulnerabilities, then bringing attention to the topic to make sure that we tackle those challenges, inspiring the next generation. And then what is also really important, bringing insights to the right people, whether that's, as you mentioned, in government, but also CISOs of larger corporations. I was spending a few weeks in the Silicon Valley to speak with a lot of CISOs of those large corporations to bring first-hand hacker insights to them, right? Because those are, most of them were business type of positions, right, and business type of people, and giving them the insight from someone who sits there Friday afternoon hacking into something just for fun is also really crucial.
So David, I did a bit of research about you, and I uncovered that you actually hacked a Tesla. Could you tell me about that story?
Yeah, so that is also a huge story, and it's quite a funny but also interesting and scary one. And it all, again, started with curiosity, right? So I didn't even want to hack any car. I just wanted to understand how some of the things there work. That was the main driver there, right? And this happened in January 2022. I was sitting there and I was taking a look at what changed in the industry, how we are doing it now. And if you go back 80 years and you take a look at a car from then, there's no technology in there at all. You can't hack it, right? There's no computer in there. And then we had our traditional cars with some interfaces, right? Wi-Fi, GSM, serial network, Canvas that is running internally. But what we are doing now is we are connecting those cars to so many more things. It's incredible, right? We are connecting them to, and this is something that is a transformation that is really huge, because we don't connect those cars to a few more things now. We are connecting them to really a number of things, right? We are connecting them to apps, whether that's a third-party app, whether that's the manufacturer app. We are now considering in-car app stores, right, where you can download apps onto your car. We are connecting them to fleet servers. They now have over-the-air updates where they can just download an update if they sit in your garage at night. We are connecting them to other cars, right? V2X communication. We are connecting them to smart roads, to traffic lights, and so many more things. And what is one of the main interesting points for me, that all of those cars now communicate back to the manufacturer.
Okay.
So you can take a look at traditional attacks on cars, where you are near a car, you hack within Wi-Fi or Bluetooth range and hack that one car. But if we are now creating those single centralized attack surfaces on the manufacturer side, I think that was pretty interesting, because if you think about it from a threat actor's perspective, if you can hack into a single centralized attack surface, then you can control multiple cars remotely around the world from your couch.
Wow.
You don't need to go up to one car and hack that one car. You can do it to multiple remotely, right? So that was something where I just wanted to understand more about it. How do those cars communicate with the manufacturer, and how does that work on that side, right? Because most of the research that was out there was focused on the car itself,
right.
But I think it's a lot more interesting to see what is on the other side, the things that we don't see. And why Tesla is definitely a question, and I'm not a car guy. I'm a computer guy, right? But a Tesla is a computer on wheels. So I'm a huge fan of Tesla, and I think it's amazing. The cars are great, and they're really advanced when it comes to the technology built in. So I was just taking a look at this, and I don't have a Tesla yet. I actually want to have one pretty soon, because then you can take a look at all of the technical things that are in there to understand it. So I didn't have a car, so I just took a look at the other side. And it was quite interesting, because all of those Teslas communicate with something called the mothership. That's the main server on Tesla's side. Every Tesla is in constant communication with that. And then it provides a lot of services internally for Tesla, and also some external things. So I was seeing that, and I was just doing some more research how that infrastructure is set up. So I found a piece of third-party code directly connected to that mothership. And I was just trying to figure out what that piece of code is doing. And it was displaying charging statistics and things like that. So I was like, that is interesting. So how does that authentication and communication work there? Because it has to pull the data somewhere, right? So I was figuring out that there are kind of digital car keys in use for the communication there. And I spent an afternoon just for fun, basically, to read through its source code to understand how it works. Without the intention of hacking anything, right? I just wanted to understand how it works. And then I found a few interesting red flags. So I found the first interesting flag there where I was like, that is cool to see. And then I found two more, and then I was sitting there and I was like, if I combine all of those, I would be able to steal those digital car keys, then authenticate with the mothership and send commands to those cars.
But by commands, I mean, what are we talking about here?
Exactly. So at first I was able to pull the data. That was what I started out with, to see where the car is, to also see some driving history and things like that. And you can see a vast majority of data. You can see the temperature settings, what music is playing. You can see pretty much everything, right? And then I was like, I think I can also send commands to the car, but I have to test it somehow, right? And I didn't want to do it with a random Tesla without permission, because you have to be really careful, and it's a very sensitive situation that you're in.
And the ethical side of you came out.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So I was like, I have to find someone who owns one of those Teslas. And you can name your Tesla. So you can give it very unique names. And I found some of those unique names, and I just Googled them and tried to see if someone wrote about their Tesla. So I found a guy on Twitter, and I was texting him like, hey, do you still have your Tesla? And we have to talk, and I might have control over it. And he responded to me, and he was like, yeah, I have a Tesla with that name, and like, what is the VIN number to like confirm it's his car? And I was like, yeah, let me pull it up, because I could read the data. So I was reading the data, sent it to him, and he was like, yeah, that's my car. I was like, wonderful. So if you now could give me permission to like unlock the doors or honk the horn or just something like that, that would be great, right? And he was like, yeah, do whatever you want, like, sure, if you think you can do it. And I expected it not to work. So I really expected it not to work, because I expected there would be so many security measures that prevent me from doing this. But I sent a command to first honk, and then I was texting him like, hey, did you hear it? Did it work? And he was like, yeah, that did work. And then I knew that now that's a huge problem, because now I can't send commands to those cars. And I also tried to figure out, like, what is the scope of this? Does it only affect one car? Is it multiple cars, right? So I was trying to figure out how many cars are affected. And in my scans, my initial scans, it showed up like multiple hundred. Later, when Tesla reacted, they revoked those digital car keys for thousands of cars. So it might have been more cars. Right. But then I still expected there to be so many security measures in place. So I actually tried to run commands on like 20, 25 Teslas, something like that. And it worked for all of them without any security measures that prevented me from sending commands. And then I was like, if it works for those, it works for all of them.
And did at any point in time Tesla get in touch with you?
No, it was the other way around. Okay. So I was actually then compiling all of the research, sending it to Tesla. Because, I mean, honking the horn is nice, right? And you could do those boring things, flash the lights, honk the horn.
Turn up the stereo.
Exactly, turn up the volume. But you could also, and that was something that I thought was quite interesting. I could see where the car is. I was able to turn off the security mode of those cars. So they have something called the sentry mode, where they record everything, and if you get too close to the car or you want to break in, it's recording your face. And I was able to turn that off. I was able to unlock the doors and get into the car. And then, so you can set a pin on your car. So it's called pin to drive. You want to start driving, you have to type in your passcode, basically. The same way if you want to unlock your iPhone. So, I mean, if you are a Tesla owner, you set this, and then it's protected, right? Yeah. So you need the key card and that pin to actually start driving, both of those things. I would have been able to just go up there and start driving without anything, without the key card, without the passcode. So I would have been able to literally go ahead, steal those cars. You could also go ahead remotely, like open the trunk, close the trunk, and all of those kind of things. You could play YouTube videos, you could set the temperature. So that is something that I was thinking about, like, what if you just heat the Tesla up like crazy, or you cool it down? That would have an impact, right? Right. So you could do a lot of those funny things. And then so I didn't expect I would be able to move the car. So I was tweeting about this, and there was this one security researcher, he's also very known, and he was like, well, I think you would be able to move the car. So that was also something very interesting. But we weren't able to test it because we didn't have a Tesla there. But that, in theory, might also have worked. Right. So a lot of interesting and a lot of critical things, right?
So it seems to me that cybersecurity is an area that people aren't giving it a lot of importance, especially today. Do you think that we are underplaying the importance of cybersecurity as a society, as a digital society?
Definitely, definitely. Especially because the transformation that we're having now. I always take Uber as an example. Let's say Uber gets hacked and the app goes down. I mean, what's the effect on us, right? I mean, we have to call a taxi, and that's it, right? But we are now digitalizing all of that critical infrastructure. We are digitalizing, and I always like to call it cyber-physical, because we are connecting so many physical systems that weren't previously connected now to the internet and digitalize it. And that is going to have direct impact on human lives. And that's the huge difference that we have there. You know, an app goes down, you have to call a taxi, that's one thing. The other thing really is if we now have all of those cyber-physical systems, and that's what we are talking about: cars, airplanes, water infrastructure, smart cities, all of those kinds of things, right? Pipelines is also something that is quite interesting. So we are connecting those things to the internet now, and innovation is great, right? I'm a huge fan of innovation and the cool things that are coming out of this. But it's happening so fast, you have so many organizations working on it, and a lot of times the cybersecurity aspect really isn't part of it yet, but it's going to be so crucial to make sure that this is one of the key parts of it.
Right. So okay, and what's at stake here? So it seems to me like there's a lot at stake, since we're plugging in all these systems, you know, aviation, pipelines. So what's really at stake if we don't take cybersecurity more seriously?
Everything. It's really everything. And we're talking about human lives, we're talking about economies. It's really incredible, because the effects that could happen caused by a large-scale cyber attack on critical infrastructure are just enormous, right? I mean, now imagine if a threat actor goes ahead and hacks a few airplanes and makes them crash. That would be something that would shake the world, right? That isn't just some corporate data encrypted. That is going to have huge impact. Or imagine you have a smart city like Dubai that is getting shut down by a threat actor for a week. That will create massive impact, right? Or what if emergency communication wouldn't work anymore? What if you take down the network of the police, for example, and you couldn't call them anymore, or they couldn't coordinate anymore? Things like that are really crucial, and we have to focus on them. It's not about some app that is getting hacked anymore. It's now about all of those critical things. And the power grid is something that we are also now talking about, right? So what if the power grid gets hacked? That is going to have widespread impact on organizations, on governments, on human lives, on everything basically. So really everything is at stake, and we have to act now. We don't have 10 years to secure all of that. We have to start doing that right now, because we've seen those cyber attacks with impact demonstrated. We've seen security researchers finding vulnerabilities that are going to have critical impact. So we need to start acting today and make sure we secure those things before the threat actors pick up and abuse vulnerabilities.
Right. So here it sounds to me that there's the good guys and the bad guys. So the villains and the heroes of cybersecurity. So there seems to me there's a team that is working collectively to identify these vulnerabilities, and there seems to be a team that is misusing their ability of the skill set. So tell me a little bit more about the different teams out there, or the different players in the cybersecurity space.
So it's three, actually. We have the good guys, we have the bad guys, and then something in between. Well, let me start off with the good guys, right? So the good guys, the cybersecurity industry, largely made up by the community. So that's really the hackers, the tinkerers, the coders, the people that are just in tech, in cybersecurity, that are passionate about it, that just go ahead, sit there Friday afternoon, finding vulnerabilities just for fun, doing the research, right? So that is a crucial part of it, because those are the people, and a lot of those people really are self-taught, a lot of those people are self-educated, a lot of those people started really early on. So the best people, the best hackers in the cybersecurity space, they started really early because it's just their passion, right? They spend a lot of time on it. It's a very interesting set of people, and it's a great community that you have there. And that's really a huge part of it. And then you have the cybersecurity industry that also plays into this, where you then have organizations in in the space that are helping organizations to secure their things. So that's definitely the good guys that just want to make the things more secure, that want to make sure we are all well protected. Then on the bad guy side, of course, you have the people that abuse those vulnerabilities to make a lot of money, the cyber criminals, right?
Okay.
Whether that's stealing data to do something with those data, like credit card data, personal information, or whether it's hacking into enterprises, encrypting their information to then go ahead and do ransom, right? To go ahead to try to extort them and be like, hey, please pay us money or you don't get back your data. That's the cyber criminals that want to make a lot of money, and they really do make a lot of money. So it's incredible how much those ransomware groups are causing in damage nowadays. So that's the bad guy side.
And the third?
Yeah, exactly, the third. Then you have something in between, which are the nation-state actors.
Yeah.
And they like to say they are the good guys because they work for governments, and within their government they are the good guys, but they hack foreign governments, foreign infrastructure, which makes them on the other side to the bad guys, right?
Right.
And that's where we are talking about intelligence agencies and things like that, which, depending on your viewpoint, could be the good guy or could be the bad guy, right?
Right. So give me an example or a story that you've heard where it showed you, as David, the true potential of a cyber threat.
So there's multiple stories, and let me pick 2 or 3 to tell here, because it's really, it's shocking. So for the cybersecurity industry, if we hear stories like that, it's just another story, because it's happening so often that we have incredibly critical cyber attacks. But if you hear those stories for the first time, it's really eye-opening. So one of the stories is a really great one. We already talked about airplanes, for example. So there was a hacker and a security researcher, and he's a really good one, and he's also an ethical one. His name is Chris Roberts, and he was sitting in an airplane. It was a long flight. It was like a 12-hour flight, I think, and he got a bit bored, so he took an Ethernet cable and he found a port under his seat where he could plug it in. So he plugged in his laptop, and 30 minutes later he was able to control parts of the airplane.
Oh, wow.
Going through the internal network of the airplane. And that is something that is really critical, because that is an airplane.
Right.
And now
lives on board.
Exactly, lives on board, and it's flying in the sky. Now a Tesla is still bound to the road, right?
Yeah.
But an airplane, that's a different topic. And now also think about how incredibly interesting a vulnerability like that would be for a really malicious threat actor like a terrorist organization. That would be gold for them, right? And now we have someone sitting there finding something like that on the fly, like literally on the fly. So that is eye-opening. How can something like that happen? Why weren't there more security measures in place? Why wasn't something like that protected a lot more? And it's not only security researchers from the community. It's also just recently, I think it was a few months ago or maybe a year ago, there was a report released. It was declassified from, I think, from the Department of Homeland Security, where they demonstrated that it would be possible to remotely control an airplane.
Oh,
so
wow.
they did research on that, trying to find vulnerabilities, and they found vulnerabilities in that space. So that is something that, when I was hearing that story the first time, I was shocked, to be honest. But now you have stories like that happening a lot of the times, and it's not only airplanes. That is something that is super interesting, but also water infrastructure. That is something you usually don't think about in your daily life, right? When was the last time you sat down and thought about water infrastructure?
Right, because it's a soft target.
Exactly. It's just nothing people spend a lot of attention on.
Yeah.
That's probably the huge problem there, because just a few months ago, it was in England. There was this water treatment facility which provided fresh water for 1.6 million people. And it was actually a criminal ransomware organization who hacked into this, and they took control over everything, all of the operational technology, all of the SCADA systems, and they would have been able, with ease, to just dump a lot of toxic chemicals into the water. There would have been no problem for them. And the only reason why this got discovered and why this didn't happen is because they took screenshots of it.
Right.
And if you
so
have
part of the good guys, obviously.
Yeah, no, but those are criminals, and even those criminals were like, please fix your stuff now, right?
Right.
But it's shocking, right? Because if they would have been a lot more malicious, they would have been able to do that and put a lot of toxic chemicals into the water for 1.6 million people.
Right.
That should be more secure, right? And also on the enterprise landscape, because if you take a look at larger enterprises, a lot of them really also have effect on the whole world, basically, right? Supply chain is a huge interesting topic, for example. And there was this huge large-scale cyber attack in 2017 called WannaCry. And it was a self-replicating worm which was able to just literally by itself copy it from one system to another and just spread through the internet. And it also hit Maersk, which is one of the largest
shipping companies.
Exactly, one of the largest shipping and transportation companies in the world. And they lost all of their IT. And it was like, wow. The impact was huge. And you might think, oh, it's an organization losing their IT, but you had huge impact on the global supply chain. There was this quote, it's a really good quote from someone who worked on the incident response of that attack. And he was saying, imagine a port where you have a container ship coming in every 15 minutes with 20,000 containers, and for a week you have no IT. And you have no idea where those containers have to go.
Right.
That is creating massive chaos. If you have 20,000 containers coming in every 15 minutes and you have no idea where those containers have to go. So that is creating major global supply chain disruptions. And especially during COVID, we've seen how fragile, how important, but also how fragile those can be. So that is something that is really important. And while we are in shipping and also cyber physical, I mean, boats are a super interesting topic, right? So when did we ever think about securing container ships itself? And we've seen the Evergreen getting stuck in the Suez Canal. There was a major disruption there. But now imagine someone would be able to do that sitting on their couch remotely to cause a situation like that again.
Right.
And there also has been some interesting research in that space. But how many security researchers can go ahead and get on a container ship doing the research, right? But I think we'll get to the challenges in a few minutes.
Right. So what are the factors impacting cyber threats today?
So it's a few things. And it's really a mix of things coming together, causing the challenges, causing the threat landscape that we have now. And one thing definitely is that huge and fast transformation that we've seen across the globe in all industries when it comes to digitalization, right?
Yeah.
We started digitalizing everything. We started digitalizing every sector that you could imagine is now based on IT. And that, of course, created a lot more attack surface. And that landscape really changed from you had a few things that you could attack to you can basically attack everything now. So that was one part. So the attack surface is much larger now. The other thing then is the cybersecurity aspect of that whole digitalization and that whole digital transformation just hasn't been taken care of in the manner it should have been taken care of. And that is something that is, again, it sounds like a broad point because it is a broad point. I mean, that's where we have to talk about skill shortage, for example. Where are the people that are able to secure all of the things, right? I mean, we figured it out for software development now. We have so many programs, we have universities, we have boot camps, we have academies where we create the people that are going to digitalize everything, right? But the cybersecurity talent is still lacking in many parts. I think the current numbers are that 3.5 million positions are unfilled in cybersecurity. So we really don't have the people that we need, the number of people that we need to go ahead and secure all of that. And one thing is also that we are doing that transformation and that innovation so fast now, right? It's happening incredibly fast. You have those large organizations working on it. You have startups working on it. You have government programs accelerating innovation. So that is happening much faster than we can keep up with cybersecurity. That's why I always say sometimes we need to pause, take a step back, and really make sure that is taken care of. And the whole industry is still navigating, right?
Right.
And there are still so many challenges that we haven't seen before that we have to solve now. There's so many new things coming up, right? 20 years ago, no one had to talk about cloud security. Right. So that is something now we have that major cloud migration also in the enterprise environment where we now move everything to the cloud. And now suddenly everything has to think about cloud security. So in cybersecurity, we have to protect everything, and those threat actors only need to find that one vulnerability to get access. So it's a lot easier to find that one vulnerability than building a system that protects everything, especially when it's so fast moving.
So what's the value chain of a cybersecurity ecosystem? So can you tell me about the different components that sort of fit together to form a holistic cybersecurity strategy?
So cybersecurity, if we really break it down to 3 points, for me it comes down to visibility. If you want to secure something, you have to see all of it, right? And that you could take that for an enterprise environment where you have to see all of your endpoints, or you can take it to a smart city where you literally have to see every single system that is connected within that smart city. So you know what's there, you know what those systems are doing, you can collect data from it. And the second part then is the protection part, right? You need to make sure that at first really the basics are covered. And that's where we are talking about passwords, that's where we are talking about multi-factor authentication, that's where we are talking about patching. So many cyber attacks, also large-scale cyber attacks, happened because of outdated systems. And of course, that's a challenge on scale. How do you make sure that everything is patched there? But that is so crucial that we take care of the basics, that we put regulations and policies in place to make sure we have a certain set and level of cybersecurity. But then the piece is there is no 100% security. That really doesn't work. So no matter how much effort you put into place, you can only set the barrier higher and higher, how long it will take for a threat actor, but there is no 100% security. So that's where we come to a very large third part, which is the detection and response part. Okay. So if you now have a threat actor getting access to something, you have to be able to detect them so quickly to then also block them, remediate those attacks, and basically see what is going on within your network, and then put the right remediations in place, the right preventions in place to keep that. I mean, the threat actor is going to move throughout your network, right? So you have to put policies in place and respond there, and you need the people to do it. So right. that is going to be the huge part there, because how many people are trained in
cybersecurity,
defending against cyber attacks live, especially in large environments, right? So it's definitely visibility, protection, and then the detection and response part to build that holistic strategy when we take a look at something. But then you also have to zoom out again, right? Because now we have defined those 3 points. Now we have to talk about how do you put it in place as like part of a national strategy, right? And that's where we are talking about getting the insight. So you need to get the insights in the industry. Where the threat actors moving to? Which vulnerabilities are those exploiting? Which attack vectors are those looking on? Then you have, as already mentioned multiple times, you need the talent to secure all of that. And you need to empower those organizations to go ahead and do it, right? Because cybersecurity, I mean, let's be honest, it's for an organization, it's just an expensive thing, right? For something that might or might not happen eventually. So a lot of organizations also really need to see a lot more value in the cybersecurity aspect of it and invest into this. So that is something where when putting policies in place, when putting strategies in place, make sure that the value is set to a level, to a degree where organization can invest into it. And also in the development space, you know, all of those developers are under pressure to deliver quickly, to release code fast, to push out those applications really fast. That's where we also have to make sure it's in the strategy that we say cybersecurity needs to be a part of this, and if there's a vulnerability in the code, then don't push it out. I mean, we know that we need the feature on Monday, but if there's a vulnerability, we have to take care of that first, right?
So it's part of the QC process.
Exactly.
It should be prioritized.
Exactly. So security really needs to be prioritized, and then we need to empower organizations, also governments, to make sure that they can implement all the right things that are needed.
Right, and so I would assume today most cybersecurity companies would come in and test a enterprise or a government's systems. You know, they look for vulnerabilities, they try to attack through a simulated environment. Is this what a cybersecurity, service provider would sort of offer?
So definitely, that is a huge part. It's called a penetration test,
right? Where
you have those cybersecurity experts go in. And then there's 2 things. So the penetration test is they just go ahead and take a look at the vulnerabilities that are there, what they can do. The other exercise is called a red teaming exercise, where they act like a threat actor, and they are a lot more stealth in that process, trying to take a look at the infrastructure like they would be a threat actor, and then also using the same tactics, techniques, and methodologies to attack an enterprise to see where they can get in. Because it's a lot better, you have those cybersecurity experts finding the vulnerabilities rather than the threat actors, right? So that is definitely one thing that cybersecurity organizations offer. The other thing then is also that protection part, right? So it's a holistic process that you need to do, because if you have a penetration test, for example, and you see there's 100 vulnerabilities, then you have to ask yourself, what could have you done to prevent all of those, right?
Yeah.
So that's where it comes to setting the right level of security policy within an organization. And the large part then, as we talked about, detection and response, so you need those cybersecurity experts from cybersecurity organizations also monitoring your network all the time, seeing what is going on.
So it's there's an event where they test, they do a penetration test, and they also continuously are monitoring the health of your security at all times.
And you can also combine those two exercises where you have two teams. One team responsible for hacking into the network, and another team that's called the blue team then trying to defending the network. And then you can have those teams run against each other where they can, because that's the best way to develop capabilities, right? Because now you have the blue team seeing the red team attack and get into the network, and they try to defend against it, and then the red team has to develop new technologies and tactics to bypass the protections in place.
Right. So it sounds like a paintball version of capture the flag, but for coding.
Exactly, and it is called capture the flag in the training space. So that is something that we developed in the education space when it comes to cybersecurity, that we have dedicated systems where you tell someone, hey, so here's an IP address, there are vulnerabilities in it, so now go ahead and hack into that. And then you have those teams going ahead trying to get access to the system and get the flag of it, where they can also train their capabilities and train their skills and get better at that. So capture the flag is definitely a thing in the education space when it comes to cybersecurity.
Gotcha. And sort of, what are the latest trends in cybersecurity, and where is it headed in the next 18 months?
That is a really good question. And I think it depends on which area we look in. So if we take a look at enterprise cybersecurity, there was something really interesting that I was able to extract when meeting with the CISOs in the Silicon Valley, because I was always asking them, like, what challenges do you currently have? Like, what are your pain points? If there's a few things, or if there's one thing you can solve like that tomorrow, right, what would it be? And I was able to figure out 3 things that those CISOs are currently looking at. One thing was the cloud migration, because that is a huge topic for those enterprises. Previously, everything was in their own data center, it was on-prem. And I always picture that on-prem infrastructure as a circle, right? So you had that circle, you put your infrastructure into it, and then you could secure the perimeter around it. But what we are doing now with the cloud migration is we are breaking that circle up, we are exposing all of those systems to the internet, which makes it, it's a vastly different attack surface, right? So that was something that was really interesting to see. And from a threat actor's perspective, that's really interesting, right? Now you have that huge cloud infrastructure of an organization. So that was something they had, or they wanted to focus on. The second part was SDLC security, software supply chain security. That was, again, something we didn't talk about 10, 15 years ago. But then we had a few large-scale cyber attacks in the space, like SolarWinds and Kaseya. Because also from a threat actor's perspective, if you can hack into the software supply chain of an organization where they build software and you get your malicious code into this, then you have that malicious code deployed throughout the organization, maybe also to their customers, right? I mean, SolarWinds was a great example. SolarWinds got hacked, those threat actors injected their malicious code into the SolarWinds application, and then that got pushed to all of the SolarWinds customers as software update. And this affected government agencies, like even the Pentagon and the intelligence agencies, that affected Fortune 500 organizations and a lot in the space by just hacking that one software supply chain. So that is a huge topic to secure now. And especially because we didn't talk about it 10 years ago, now we are scrambling to figure out what protections we can put in place. And it's also increasing because everything is software now. So many people are developing it. The last part was APIs, because everything is based on those interfaces now between those different applications. And it's no matter what you take a look at, whether that's a smart power plug or an app, everything has APIs. So that is something you really need to focus on securing, because we are creating those, again, with those APIs, those centralized entry points, right? You hack that API, you get access to all the data behind it, you get access to the systems behind it. So that is something we really need to make sure is secure. So that's it for the enterprise landscape. Cloud migration software supply chain security and API security. And if we take a look at the whole industry, I think we are definitely going to have a lot more focus on cyber physical, because that is something we need to act now. And I think the industry is slowly shifting into this, where we develop the capabilities to try to keep up with innovations happening.
Right. So cybersecurity and AI, it sounds to me like it's either a happy marriage or an ugly one. What would you say?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. So the happy marriage in the sense of we can use the capabilities of AI and machine learning to speed up a lot of the processes, right? To be able to maybe automatically detect cyber attacks, to be able to leverage the insights that machine learning can get out of large data sets. Because the thing is, if you monitor a large network, I mean, there's a flood of data, right? And you can't have an analyst take a look at every single thing going on, right? So that's why you can leverage AI solutions to go ahead and extract the interesting points and interesting parts out of that huge data flood to then only send the crucial and critical parts to a human analyst to take a look at, right? That is going to be something the industry is already starting to implement and doing there, to use AI to make sense of that huge data flood that is getting in there, but also to use AI to detect patterns of attacks, right? How threat actors are moving, because then you can, human analysts are always needed, but if you can use AI to detect patterns of a cyber attack, that is something that is really useful, right? You can also have AI detecting a lot of vulnerabilities going on if they are trained on it. But on the other side, you can also leverage AI to find those vulnerabilities for malicious purposes, right? You can use machine learning to figure out how to break encryption and things like that.
Gotcha. And quantum computing and cybersecurity, is that a new trend, or is that an area going to impact cybersecurity in the future?
Exactly. It's going to hugely impact cybersecurity. And I'm not quite sure if that's a common or known fact yet. So I feel like in the cybersecurity industry it is, so I'm not quite sure if it's outside it. Quantum computing is going to break all of our encryption. Everything that is encrypted right now, all that encryption is going to be broken by quantum computing. So we rely on encryption everywhere, right? You send encrypted emails, your chats are encrypted, you transfer data encrypted, your internet communication is encrypted. All of that broken and stripped away by quantum computing. That is something where the industry is still trying to figure out how to handle that. And the next step is then trying to build cryptographic algorithms that can withstand quantum computing, but that fails right now. Just a funny article that I was literally reading a few weeks ago. There was this release of a quantum-proof cryptographic algorithm. Like that was a concept paper, that is going to be it. And then one guy with a supermarket computer, like a normal supermarket computer, was breaking that algorithm in 30 minutes. So it might be unbroken by quantum computers, but if that guy can go ahead and do it with his supermarket PC, that's also not going to be it. So we haven't found the answer for that yet. The question there is, how do we handle this if quantum computing is going to go ahead and break all of our encryption? And also, combining AI, machine learning, and quantum computing is going to unlock incredible potential, right? Because the computing power is going to be, we can't even imagine how much this is going to change every industry, not only cybersecurity, every industry, but cybersecurity is going to be a huge piece of it. And now as industry, we have to figure out what our answer is going to be to the challenge that is presented there.
Right. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about your trip to Dubai.
It was amazing. To sum it up in one sentence, it was amazing. It is amazing. It's an incredible place, and you hear a lot about Dubai, right? So you feel like you know Dubai until you've been to Dubai. So you hear a lot about what is going on here, and seeing it for the first time really changed my view. When I was flying out to Dubai here in March for the first time, and seeing what is happening here, the speed that you have here, the people that you have here, the will that you have here, that fire that is burning, that was just something that I found so super exciting, because I know that from the tech field, right? If you have a few tech guys in one room, that is super exciting. But now imagine you have a whole country coming together with that excitement, with that passion, with the will to do something. If you take a look at the visions that you have here, that is just incredible, right? We don't have that in Germany, and here you have a vision how the country is going to look like in 2071, what you want to accomplish. There's this ambition, and what I thought was so super fascinating, no matter who you talk to, whether it was a taxi driver or whether it was someone in media or whether it was someone in the tech field, everyone was passionate, everyone was ambitious, everyone wanted to work towards that goal of making Dubai a leading and digital city, and that was just awesome to see. And I felt it was really empowering, right? And to see an environment like that, which is empowering, really gets you excited to do more, to go ahead. And if you take a look at the past 50 years or now 51 years of the country, you see how far it has come in the past. And now think about it like 5 years into the future, how much is going to change. It's incredible. And
right.
Yeah, I'm still struggling to put it into sentences because it's exciting and it's awesome and it's beautiful.
What's your favorite spot in Dubai?
So that is a really hard question. And I probably have to say it's the Emirates Towers.
Okay.
Because that is a place where you have so many cool things come together, right? You have the Dubai Future Labs in there. You have a government accelerator there. You have the youth hub there. And it's just great to see that you have, and it's a government place, right? And now imagine a government place where you have a youth hub, where you want to empower your youth, where you have a lab where you literally develop flying drones and then robots and things like that. So that was just incredible to see. And also if you take a look at the writings there, right? And the quotes from His Highness, it's incredible, right? You know,
right.
I'm not quite sure if I can recall it correctly, but it's an empowering quote regarding the future is nothing you wait for, the future is something you create, and that is really true, right?
Right. Okay, and you're going to be going back and forth to Dubai quite often.
So yeah, I think it's my 4th time now, and I've been here for the past 3 weeks now, because I really don't want to go back. It's just an incredible place. I now have all the visa things sorted out, and I feel like that whole region is now coming up, and it's coming up really fast, and it's going to be a major game changer globally if that region is unfolding its full potential in technology, in cybersecurity, in innovation.
Gotcha. So you spoke at the World Government Summit, I think around a year ago, or less than a year ago. You were 19 then.
Correct.
Was that in any way intimidating to you?
No. So I was thinking it should be intimidating. And then I was standing, there's this one moment, I remember it very clearly. So I was standing in the middle of that hall. You know, it was really busy around all of those people. And I was standing there zooming out. And I thought, I should be nervous right now. You know, it's a World Government Summit. You have so many important people here, and I should be nervous right now. But the feeling that I had, I felt exactly in the right place. So I'm not quite sure if it's destiny or what exactly it was, because I was standing there feeling exactly in the right place. My ultimate goal, what I want to achieve in life, is having impact, making the things better, having impact on the world. And that place was a way to enable that, right? To speak with the right people. Get your voice heard. Exactly, get the voice heard, speak with the right people. And that's why I was feeling that's the right place for me to be right now, to do exactly that, to create that impact, which is so highly needed in cybersecurity now. And
what were sort of the takeaways from the World Government Summit? You know, what were some of the high-level takeaways that you were able to grasp or take from there?
So what I think was quite interesting from my session, actually, a few takeaways. There's this really great news article about it where they quote some of the sentences, because I was saying, you know, cyber attacks don't stop at borders. Cyber attacks are global, so the cybersecurity aspect also needs to be global, and that's where governments and public and private companies have to cooperate together and form those partnerships to prevent it, right? Or the other thing also is, if we take a look at governments, for example, they really need to build those collaborations to go ahead. And I feel like it was a good start to have that session with me there at the World Government Summit last year, and I really hope that we are going to continue building the cybersecurity aspect of it to enable and create a collaboration. Because what you could see at the World Government Summit, that we discussed all of the important topics, whether that's climate change, whether that's future of government, right? Whether that's digitalization. There are so many things that, so many important topics that we discussed there, and you had all the right people there. It was incredible. You could meet so many great people from so many different places. Everyone did something fascinating, no matter who you spoke with. It was really great. And having the platform there talking about those important issues was great to see, and I think we can also take that further for cybersecurity there.
Right. So I'm going to ask you a question off the record here, or off the script. So what's next for you?
So that was the main question that I had on my desk for the past few months, right? Because now the Tesla story happened, and I was flying out to everywhere, basically. I got invited to Dubai for the World Government Summit. I was flying to Tel Aviv, meeting with a lot of startups. I was flying to the Silicon Valley, meeting with a lot of those Fortune 500 CISOs, and speaking with so many people from so many different places. I was just extracting those insights to figure out where the gap is, right? Because we clearly have a gap. I mean, on the one side, we have all of those metrics going in the wrong direction, right? I mean, damage caused by cybercrime, it's just incredible. It's going to be, in 2025, it's going to be $10.5 trillion every year damage caused by cybercrime. Yeah. It would be like the world's third largest economy, I think, cybercrime, which is just incredible. Then skill shortages going in the wrong direction, as already mentioned, with 3.5 million positions unfilled. And also attacks on critical infrastructure are just going up if you take a look at the numbers. So clearly there's a gap somewhere, and I was speaking with all of those people trying to extract where the gap is, and now I'm going to utilize those insights and go ahead. And I mean, I had all the doors open, right? I was speaking with people from a lot of amazing companies, from a lot of awesome projects, and I could have gone to a lot of interesting places with job offers that I had from there, but I want to create as much impact as possible, and we have to create that impact now. So I ultimately came back to, I have to start my own global project now with all of those connections, with those insights to tackle that gap that I identified to go ahead. So that is what I'm working on right now.
So David, you mentioned that you want to build your own company in cybersecurity. Have you been approached by any governments, or do you find support from specific governments to come set up shop in their country?
So, I mean, I got invitations to across the world, right? But the most support was here in the region, right? I mean, getting invited to a World Government Summit definitely shows there is government interest, government support. And what I think is also beautiful here is that you have the right people. You can get in touch with them if you want to speak with someone from the government. It's possible here. So that's why you see that the interest is there for the topic, that the will to talk about it is there, that the will to support it is there. Also, me being here in this podcast is definitely something that shows that there is the interest here in the region. And I mean, I got the golden visa, right? It took me 2 days. I got it, and I got it offered from the government. I was sitting in the backyards of the Emirates Towers, actually, when they offered me the golden visa. And then I got it within 2 days, which definitely shows that this region here definitely supports those visions of creating that impact, definitely shows that they care about topics like technology, innovation, cybersecurity. And you can definitely say that the most support and the most interest was expressed from Dubai.
Perfect. And congratulations on the golden visa.
Thank you very much.
And you mentioned you got it in 2 days? Wow. Okay. And that in any way indicates to you that, you know, Dubai is sort of trying to build the perfect, you know, environment for high talent such as yourself to come together, to work together, and solve big challenges such as cybersecurity threats.
Definitely. You feel that the speed is there. And you know, that speed that is driven by the will, by the opportunity, by the interest, by the support. You know, if you get your visa here, I'm not quite sure if that's for everyone, but for me it was like fully digital. I think that's a default and standard now here in Dubai, that you can do pretty much everything fully digitalized now, right? And the Emirates ID that you get is then something you can use to sign documents and things like that. So it's already very fast, it's already very digitalized, and it was great to see that. if you want to come here, if you want to start working on your vision here, that there's this pathway and that support to actually do it. And I think that is where Dubai really excels doing that. So if you want to get here, if you are an entrepreneur and you have a great vision, you can go ahead. And we just talked about this before the podcast, creating those really strong networks in tech, in innovation, in cybersecurity, to take those entrepreneurs, to empower them. And it was a great conversation. And I think that is something that you are really on the forefront of working on.
Right. And do you know what we do here at Seed and how we can sort of help you? I'm using the role reversal here.
I mean, it all starts with the conversations, right?
Right?
So that is already really important to have those conversations about those topics, because then you can identify where the opportunities would be. And I think we are going to have a lot of follow-up conversations about what we can do together to empower entrepreneurs coming here, to create that strong networks, to build all of that, to fuel in the global talent.
Perfect. Yes, absolutely. So here at Seed, just to put it out there, we work very closely with companies around the world that are looking to come into the UAE, into the GCC region. Usually those are B2B innovative tech companies, and they're looking for some sort of platform to launch their company and sort of expand into the region. We offer them local knowledge, we offer them cultural knowledge, we offer them business development support with their go-to-market, with setting expectations, with integrating what they're offering towards the local market. And this is pretty much what we do here at Seed.
And I think it's, especially because the region is now accelerating so fast, incredibly important to have a local partner that knows exactly how the region works and that can help to catch that really fast moving transformation now.
Absolutely. Well, we wish you all the best of luck with that. And David, if anyone wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you or get in touch?
So LinkedIn is a good place. So let's just connect on LinkedIn, and you can just text me there. And I'm really looking forward to continue those conversations with all of you, because we need to keep the conversation moving, keep it forward, to make sure that we create that impact that we need.
Well, thank you very much for being with us today, and we really enjoyed having you on our show. We hope you can come back sometime soon.
Definitely. I mean, we have so many evolvements in cybersecurity, so I'm looking forward to be back. Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor, and
it was a pleasure having you.